Greg Olsen joining us. It's Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000. I've been wanting to talk to you about the Panthers trade. I am calling this, for right or wrong, and I wanted to get your opinion, opposite Greg Olsen, because I believe this could be payback for you going to the Panthers, and this is similar to you going to the Panthers with DJ Moore coming to the Bears. This is a guy who is very productive with the Panthers and probably should have been a Panther for a long, long time. And now we get him at the right time, pairing up with a guy who could be our future quarterback for a lot of years, kind of like how you paired up with Cam, and really could take this next step. Do you see DJ Moore being Oppo you?
You know, I think there's definitely the possibility. I think DJ, first off, I'll start by saying DJ is one of the best dudes that I ever played with. Like, doesn't have a lot to say. He's not a real big, flashy guy. He's not out there trying to make a name. But you talk about a guy who, when the lights go on, is a competitor. The way he fights with the ball in his hand. From the first day we saw him as a rookie when we drafted him, he almost is like part wide receiver, part running back. Right, the way he runs with the ball, he's got a low center of gravity. He's very strong with the ball in his hands. He looks like a running back when he's running with the ball, which is not the norm. Most receivers are not really looking for contact. They're not really looking to play physical with the ball in their hands. They do most of their damage before. So DJ's a little different in that regard. He was just a great teammate, hard worker, everything you'd want in a guy. So first and foremost, who the Bears are getting, they're going to love. But I think the comparison between continuing – when I was on with you guys last year during the season, and I said, I don't think it's so much about whether Justin Fields is a guy who can play or not. I think they have to continue to invest and surround him with other high-caliber players, like any young quarterback. That's unique to him, to really get the best out of him and really do a fair evaluation. So I give the Bears a lot of credit. They had that number one pick, the Lovie Smith pick, where so Lovie paying back Chicago and all these years later. But they wanted to be aggressive because they felt confident in Justin, and they were able to parlay that into not only all the draft picks, but the guy they really wanted was DJ. So they're getting the player, they're getting the guy, they're getting the competitor. They're checking all those boxes. And then I think, to your earlier point, when I matched up with Cam at a similar stage in my career that DJ's in, it's a young quarterback who's highly talented, who needs more weapons around him to continue his development. And they went out and got a former number one pick, a true number one receiver to add to a group that was kind of underwhelming to a degree last year in the skill department standpoint. And Justin was still highly productive in lieu of that. So I think across the board, it checks every single box. And as much as I know Carolina was disappointed to lose DJ, I think if I'm a Bears fan, I'm pumped.
There's no doubt. And we all know, Greg, that the NFL it's classic going last to first. And nobody here is expecting them to compete for a Super Bowl title. But you mentioned the upgrade at the wide receiver position. They've upgraded. They've focused on improving the protection. What are realistic expectations for a team that won 3 games last year?
I think, you brought up earlier, you brought up our situation in Carolina when we got there in 2011. We had Cam in his rookie year, new coaching staff that year. So within reason, a similar situation as you kind of referred to on the previous question. So I think in that regard, you take a similar approach to how did I see it firsthand improve, right? Our first year in 2011, the year before they were 2-14, picked number 1. Our first year, I think we were 6-10. I think we won either 6 or 7 games. But we were highly competitive, right? We lost to Green Bay Packers. We both scored 35 plus. There was just a shootout, but they beat us. We were competitive in every game. We won 6 of them, but I would say 11 of them we looked like we belonged, right? So that was the first step: is be highly competitive, be in every game. Sometimes your youth prevents you from winning all those close games, but be in them. You might lose. Some of them might run away. You might run into a buzzsaw here and there that get away from you. They're just better than you. But this next year, be more competitive than you were last year. Can you get to 6 or 7 wins? And the next year after that, it compounds. And next thing you know, 3 years into the build, we won 12 games. We went 12-4, and we were the number 2 seed with a bye in 2013. That was only our 3rd season there. So it can change fast. but you can't say, oh, this year we're going to make the Super Bowl. There are steps in the process. I know no fans want to hear that. You have to continue to add young talent. You have to continue to do everything you can to support your franchise quarterback in Justin Fields. And then as you continue down that approach, the wins will come, the consistency to come, and the ability to be competitive on a week-in, week-out basis, no matter who you're playing. That's when you know, okay, we're for real now. We have a chance. Let's continue our growth pattern. That's how we did it. I think that's a similar trajectory that you see a lot of young teams. But as they support Justin, they'll go as far as he goes.
Same question, Greg, for the quarterback. And this is a league of adjustments. They'll adjust to what they saw. Teams will adjust to what they saw from Justin last year. What do you believe? What will your eyes tell you about his progress in this upcoming season? What does he have to do to actually prove to this organization that he is their future?
I think it's such a good question because there are so many parallels that we had when Cam was young. And I think from the outside, there were so many people, for whatever reason, the NFL fan base and the media and whoever you want to put into that bucket, when they look at quarterbacks who run and when quarterbacks who make plays with their feet, whether it's off scramble, off script, or it's designed, whether it's designed option, designed keep, a lot of the things that we saw Chicago do with Justin last year, whichever one of those cases, we have this we jump to the conclusion that just because he runs, it's because they're unable to play from the pocket. They're unable to do a lot of the more quote-unquote prototypical quarterback things. And I don't think that's the case with Justin. So I think there needs to be a balance both within and outside the organization where they say, we're going to continue to play to Justin's strengths, which is as an athlete, but along those, we're going to continue to develop him as a passer. And one does not have to take away from the other. You just have to do it in a smart way. So I think the biggest thing they need to do, continue to develop the on-rhythm passing game, the on-time passing game, both pre- and post-snap declaration, decision-making, being on time with the ball, understanding what looks defenses are giving both when they're lining up and then post-snap with the disguise. Like, as he continues to progress in those areas, don't force-feed that in lieu of doing what his strengths are, right? As I always used to tell young players, never lose what you hang your hat on. Whatever you hang your hat on, always be great at that as you build the other things in your game. So I would say the same thing to Justin. Continue to be a playmaker. Continue to be a game changer with the ball in your hands. The year he had last year was incredible what he did with the ball. He was really one of the main only threats on the team. As he develops that passing game, the more traditional passing game, it'll just make him that much more dangerous of a player. He can be both. One does not have to necessarily take away from the other.
I love that. So, that threat is what makes him great.
Yeah, so don't handcuff him now, right? Everybody has this thing that you want to reinvent. Oh, in order to make him a pocket passer, we have to force him to only play from the pocket. I guess that's to a degree true, but if you have a player whose strengths are A, B, and C, as you're trying to build up D, keep A, B, and C as a threat because he's damn good at it.
Yeah.
Right? Don't all of a sudden try to reinvent the guy. You drafted the guy. You know who he is. There's a lot of room for improvement in the traditional passing game, and that's fine to acknowledge. But he's really good at a lot of other things too. So keep him good while you continue to build the rest of his game. I believe that's for any position, right? I believe that's for a speed wide receiver. Yeah, he's got to be better in and out of his breaks. Maybe he doesn't catch the ball great, but I'll tell you what, while I'm teaching him to run dig routes and I'm teaching him to use his hands, you best believe I'm going to send him on 6 deep balls a game because that's what he does. You know what I mean? So I think NFL coaches and to a degree organizations have a hard time understanding that. The teams that do it best are the teams that play to their players' strengths as they continue to build up their weaknesses.
Greg Olsen joining us. It's Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000. What about our tight end room here in Chicago, Greg? Cole Kmet obviously took a step last year. They added Tanyan to the mix. Do you like what they have here?
I do. I've spoke to you guys about Cole. I really like Cole. I thought he had a really good year last year. Again, any young quarterback that can have that reliable threat at the tight end position, I think is super valuable. And I think you saw a little bit of that develop. I think Cole will benefit from a guy like DJ Moore outside. I think he needs Chase Claypool to come on. The more of a threat those guys can be and the more coverage gets kind of pulled out of the middle towards the boundaries, the more he can come alive, especially down in the red zone when they get a lot of attention. So any good tight end is going to benefit from how talented they are around them. So I don't think Cole's unique in that regard. Tunyon, to me, is really interesting. Obviously, we saw what he was able to do the year prior to getting hurt. I think he had like 12 touchdowns, or I don't remember off the top of my head. It was definitely double digits. He had a great year, got hurt. Last year was still kind of coming back from the ACL. Maybe wasn't utilized quite the same that he was prior to the injury. But if he can be back full strength and healthy and be back to running and in and out of his breaks like he was before the injury when we saw him as a young player in Green Bay, I think it's a sneaky pickup. I think it gives them a nice combination of two guys that have done it. They've done it at a high level. And again, the more reliable pieces around Justin Fields, he's just going to continue to improve. So I like the group. Again, you're judged by production, so they got to be productive. But at the same time, I think the possibilities of that production are there. Now it's up to the coaching staff and the players and the system, again, to bring out what each of them does best. That's the sign of good coaching. That's the sign of good organizations.
Greg, you mentioned Green Bay, so I have to ask you, and I know, none of us possess a crystal ball, so it's hard to know exactly who Jordan Love will be, but it's been 30 straight years of Hall of Fame quarterback play up there. What happens with this Green Bay Packers team with a young quarterback that isn't named Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre?
Well, I'll tell you, that's the million-dollar question. I think it's interesting. I think we're going to go back all these years, and this will be the full report about whether that Jordan Love, draft pick was worth it. We know the angst that it caused. We know the friction that it caused within the organization, particularly with how Aaron Rodgers took it. And I don't blame him. I probably would have taken it the same way. So now we got to see if they hedge their bets and they end up winning, because it's hard to replace an Aaron Rodgers, right? There's only a handful of them who've ever played at that level in NFL history, let alone right now. But the show must go on, right? And the Green Bay Packers, their fans are going to show up week one, and they're going to expect a competitive group on the field when they come up to Soldier Field to open up against their rival. So I think they're going to be talented around them. I think their defense will be better. Even though they took a step back last year, I think they'll be better. I think offensive skill-wise, they still have a lot of good players. The wide receivers that were young last year, I know that was some frustration with Aaron, but I think they got better as the season wore on. And now it's a question of how well do they play at the quarterback spot. I think if the quarterback spot gives them above average talent, I still think they're one of the contenders within the division. If they don't get high-level quarterback play, and that's a significant regression, I think like any team, it's hard to overcome. So I think there's a lot of pressure right now on the young quarterback, but that's what you got drafted in the first round for, and the guys around him are going to have to do their job to take some pressure off him.
All right, before we let you go, tomorrow we have Robbie Gold in studio, and George Kittle is going to call in. So Robbie's getting into radio because he sees the end, but he still wants to kick. Give us your best Robbie Gold story, and give us your best George Kittle story.
Man, the George Kittle stories could go on for days. I've gotten to know George, and he is one of the most unique characters. I was actually just with him. I was out in L.A. actually this weekend. Ryan Khalil, a buddy of mine, runs a production company out there. They just produced White Man Can't Jump remake with Jack Harlow. So we were actually out in L.A. George was out there. We'd become close. So a bunch of us were together. So he is just you see him in WWE. You see him coming out of the audience, ripping his shirt off. I mean, he is on full 100% on at all times. So he's a great dude, hell of a player, hell of a competitor. It's funny. I don't have a lot of those stories of Robbie, but one from this past year that sticks out. We're getting ready. Where were we? We were in San Francisco, and they were getting ready to play. Oh God, who were they getting ready? It might have been Dallas. It might have been in the playoffs when they hosted Dallas when Brock Purdy got hurt. I think I have that story right. And there's like a big melee going on where they're kicking, where the Dallas kicker's trying to kick. The San Francisco guys are trying to warm up there, and they're getting in each other's face. And Fossil, the special teams coach of Dallas, he's getting involved. And next thing you know, like, here comes Robbie. He's 50 years old. He's the kicker. And he, like, waddles down from the other side, and, like, he gets involved like he's the mayor, and he's trying to stop, like, Micah Parsons and like all these people from fighting. I'm just like, hey, Robbie. So I'm standing on the field. I'm like, Robbie, I think you should just go down and kick on the other side, bud. I feel like this fight may be a little bit out of your weight class. But that Robbie's got every situation fully under control.
Yeah, he is the mayor.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I've heard that name used by other people. That
The
he
mayor?
is truly the mayor.
That's his nickname, the mayor?
Yeah.
All right.
Robbie's a great dude, man. He's done that at a high level for a long time. He's one of the best.
Yeah.
As are you. Keep up the great work. I know you're having a blast with the kids, and hope the family's well. And we'll catch up game week. Thanks so much, Greg.
Sounds
Thanks,
good,
Greg.
guys. Always good talking to you. Thanks, guys.
There
See
you
ya.
go.